All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Couch Talk. Thanks for joining us. You may have noticed that our episode 2 didn't go according to plan, and that was about getting it out, then getting it right. What you might notice is we've just got audio for that because we actually didn't get it right.
Get it right.
But we figured we'd get it out.
Get it out anyway. It stopped recording at 41 seconds, and instead of mope about and say, oh, this is stupid, let's stop, we remained positive and just got it out. That's the second episode.
That's it.
And it may not be good, but at least it's out.
That's it. And hopefully, leave your comments on that one, actually, because you're just going to get the audio on that.
Just the audio. Or maybe the first 41 seconds of the video, depending on how much John wants to put, how much effort John wants to put into the editing. But mostly just the audio.
Yeah. But anyway, this episode, we're talking about, Tim introduced me. Tim is one of my, I like to call him affectionately as one of my nerdier friends.
Yes.
Because he's a developer and he runs a web design business, TISA Innovations.com.
.com.au, actually. It's .com and .com.au.
Yeah. But, so I'm in tech as well, and I've done computer science, and I've worked at IBM and Google and Salesforce, and now with NTT Data, which is Nippon Telegraph and Telecommunications, like the Telstra of Japan, and we sell SAP stuff. So I've been a bit of a geek myself, but from the other side, I help sell the stuff, he helps build the stuff.
Yeah,
so one of the things is, I feel like a bit of a noob whenever I speak to Tim, and he shared a movie saying, "Oh, did you know where this came from? As in the iPhone and Apple and all these innovations that we see today.
Yeah.
Did you know how it all began?" And I was like,
"Not
really, man. I just use the products. We've got a Sony phone here running Android. We've got Samsung running Android. I just use the technology and I just try to sell that." But Tim told me that it comes from a movie called Triumph of the Nerds.
Yeah, this movie here is what really shaped. It's one of the movies that have made such a huge impact in my life that I just forgot everything that was important at the time and just focused purely on tech. I saw it back in the early 90s. I think I was around 11 or 12, and it was playing at the Powerhouse Museum right here in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for the whole day. It was just a little room, and you could watch it. And
it's like 3 parts, right?
3 parts, but they had the whole series just playing in this little room. And I was just so mesmerized. I think I was like 11, probably 10 or 11 or 12, maximum 12.
Yeah, right. So it's pretty old.
It was quite old. It's quite an old film. So this is even before the second coming of Jobs. This documentary about Apple and Microsoft and where it all started was before Steve Jobs came back to Apple, and that's how we know the iPhone and the iPod and the iMacs. So this was even before that. But it was such an impactful documentary that even today it's so relevant.
Yeah, right.
The message is so beautiful. The story is amazing. So if you haven't already seen it, I mean, you should just stop this video right now and watch it. But you can come back later and
check it out. So as you can see, Tim's pretty passionate about this video. So when I was like, Triumph for the Nerds, I've got to check this thing out. So I guess today we're going to talk more about the lessons from Triumph for the Nerds. And just to set the scene a bit, it's about Bill Gates when he started, how he started Microsoft. How he was just a kid, how IBM came knocking on his door to get the code, to put the program
or the operating system to put onto their own PCs.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have an operating system. The operating system, as we know today, is the likes of Windows, or for the Mac, it's the OS X.
Yeah.
So when IBM decided to build their own personal computer, because they were getting their ass absolutely whooped by Apple with the Apple II.
Yeah.
And people were just buying it like hotcakes.
Yeah.
IBM thought, oh, we're losing this battle. What are we going to do? I mean, this is Big Blue. These were the guys that paved the way for the computer industry.
What you'll find out in Triumph for the Nerds was Big Blue, IBM was like the king,
the giants,
the king of everything.
Yes.
And Microsoft
at the time,
and Apple were the disruptors.
They were the little guys. They were like the guys that you would consider, you know, like Google back in 1998.
Yeah.
You know, those were the small timers.
But the show, the Triumph of the Nerds, actually goes before that.
Even before that, even before Gates
came up with the PC.
Came up with the PC, yeah.
Before the PC.
Basically,
Do you remember the guy's name? Who was the...
I can't remember exactly, but he...
basically, it was a box about this big.
It was the Altair. It was the first piece.
Altair.
The Altair 8800.
It was about this big, that wide. And you had to put your program in through binary switches, meaning on and off, on and off, on and off.
To create a program. So what we know of... what we know as the computer today is not the computer that they knew back in the 80s or even before that. This is the kind of stuff that used to be housed in huge buildings. You know, like you wouldn't. There's no one can comprehend a computer that you can just
have in a
little
computer.
But personal. That was not. Yeah. That's why it was called a personal computer. It wasn't called just a computer, because computers back then took up a whole, you know, building. It was a mainframe.
And IBM was late to the game because they didn't think that people wanted PCs.
They didn't think that people wanted a small computer. I mean, what is a PC really?
Yeah.
It's just a machine that calculates stuff. Back then it was boring. What can it do?
And so the Altair created, and all these nerds came over and they bought this thing where they had to switch it on, switch it off.
So the Altair was like an idea so that gave people the access to actually own a computer.
Yeah.
Back then that was unheard of. This is like saying you can now have your own airplane.
Yeah.
You can have your own helicopter or something like that.
And for nerds, this was like, oh my God, I get to have this for $500 or something.
This is crazy, yeah.
And basically the guy who created the Altair, his business was going bust.
Yeah.
Because what was he doing? I don't know what he was selling before that.
I think calculators or something.
Something to do with electronics.
Yeah, it was
but when he created this, he went gangbusters.
He didn't even know he had a bestseller in his hands. His projections for the monthly sale of that was about 700 units per month.
Yeah, right.
Something very small like that. And even then he thought that was a wild number. Because he was trying to get investment. Yeah. Because he was going down, as you were saying. Yeah. So even he didn't know the success. Now, he just built the computer, right? Yeah. He just made the kit. Yeah. But he didn't make the software.
Yeah, right.
And this is when Gates came in and all these other people that well, mainly Bill Gates and Paul Allen, the two that
started writing
Microsoft,
software for computers.
For computers, and then they made this, and they realized, boom, they've got a business model in their hands.
So what this made me think about was when you look at this and you see the passion. So in this movie, you'll actually see Bill Gates being interviewed. You'll see Steve Jobs being interviewed. And the passion of these guys is they didn't know what they were creating. They didn't know. They just wanted a box where they said what used to excite them was that you create a program and you get to see things dance on the screen. Yeah. And that was just cool.
Well, to Steve Wozniak, and to those who don't know, he's the right-hand man, or the other co-founder of Apple. Without Wozniak, Apple will not be, Apple. Yeah. So there's really Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Wozniak described it as almost magical, being able to see the thoughts that you've comprehended in your head output into a screen. That was like unheard of back then. That was magic. Yeah. So this is why they became so, like, they thought they were going to create a revolution. And they did.
And they did. But at the time, they didn't know.
They didn't know.
They said we were just a bunch of guys writing some software,
and
excited, everyone said that. So Steve Jobs said that,
Wozniak, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, Paul Allen, all the guys that you know that are billionaires today. I just started off with an idea.
Yeah, they didn't even, and that just made me go, you know what, if you've got an idea and if you're passionate about it, just pursue it. You don't know what it's going to create. They didn't realize. So Steve Jobs says this, he goes, when I was 22, I may be a bit wrong here on the numbers,
it's quite
22, he was worth $1 million. At 23, he was worth 10 million. At 24, he was worth $100 million.
Something crazy like that. But by the time he was 30, it was just numbers that they didn't even have to work a day anymore, and they'd still be.
And he was still. The funny thing is that he was still living as if he had no money.
Yeah,
because he was just loved creating.
That's
and
right.
that just made me go, well, in my head, I've been one of those guys that have been chasing the money, being in sales, right? And then when I meet Tim here, he started his business, and he goes, you know what? At the end of my life, I just want to have said I've done it my way.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's pretty amazing. Like,
right. But then again, it's also a balance, because I think you're more in terms of on paper, you're more successful because you generated more capital, more income.
But I think the creative process is it's not always monetizable.
That's true. That's true.
But just because there's guys in this show, which you'll notice, there's guys who created what did they create? The software?
Oh, the VisiCalc software.
Yes, the VisiCalc.
Right. So in this documentary, it also outlines some of the software, the killer apps that we're used to. Like, for example, Excel. Everyone knows Excel, right? You know Excel.
Yeah.
What not many people know about is it actually came about from a program that was not even a Microsoft program.
No.
It was called VisiCalc, and it's what we know as Excel today. Basically, it's a spreadsheet program.
And that program made people buy the PC.
They made Apple the millionaires.
Yeah.
The
So basically, the guys who created this program, the VisiCalc program, they didn't become millionaires.
No, they did not. They didn't patent it. They didn't do anything.
You got to remember, before VisiCalc, before VisiCalc, you could not do what-if analysis as a financial analyst. You'd have to do it by paper.
That's right. So there'd be guys literally doing this full time, calculating each cell. Like, you know how in Excel you go in and you put in a cell, autofill, and that calculates it from however
you can
long
retrospectively
you
or progressively,
like 1,000 fields, and it'll just calculate it.
And we grow up on that, right?
That was just normal. Back then, it was not. People had to literally fill in each cell, and if there was one mistake, your whole projection is off.
And for them, they had net present value, discounted cash flows. Those sort of calculations had to be done by hand.
Yeah.
When you showed a CFO this or financial analyst, they bought it straight away.
Yeah, there was one guy there in the movie. I won't spoil too much, but there was one guy who was like shaking as soon as he saw that program, and he was like, literally, just take my money, give me this software. This has saved me so much time, so much money.
And when they interviewed the VisiCalc guys, basically, they said, look, we weren't millionaires. We didn't actually catch in on this. And they know they kind of missed it. They didn't patent it or whatever it was.
They didn't. But they were happy. I mean, the guys there,
they said, we wanted to change the world.
And they did.
And they were happy that they actually did. They just held it and went, we changed the world. Even the guy that created the Altair, he said, look, I'm happy that I played a part.
I'm happy with that too. If I could even just a little bit have an influence of changing the world, by God, that's it for me.
That's it, right? Yeah. And sometimes it's not about people knowing you change. Like the VisiCalc guys, most people don't know they actually changed the world. Yeah. But they go to the grave knowing.
Yes.
They go, we did that. And I think when I look at this triumph for the nerds, the other thing, how much time have we got on this?
5 more minutes.
4 minutes, all right. Okay. The other thing that people don't really realize is that Xerox back in the day.
Oh my God, yeah, that is a huge one.
That's a huge thing. There's innovation labs which happened, right? And so Xerox.
So if you were to think of the PC today, and I asked you, where do you think it came from? The idea of the GUI interface, the point and click, the mouse, even a freaking a laser printer, right? Yeah. You'd be thinking Microsoft, maybe Apple.
Yeah.
Well, no, it didn't come from them at all. It came from a company which just prints paper. They didn't even have the PC in their sites. I mean, like really.
So Xerox had this.
Yeah.
So Xerox had this innovation lab,
Yeah.
which was set apart from. So you had the business people, and then you got Xerox.
Yeah, it's sort of like what Microsoft does now with their what do you call it?
They have like an innovation.
Innovation lab.
I think all of them do.
Like they do
does,
now.
Everyone does
But
it,
Xerox had this, and they invented everything that we know of.
They invented three things largely. Like the three things that. So Steve. The funny thing about this is Steve Jobs got invited to go and visit the Xerox labs.
Yeah.
And Xerox had the smartest people in the world working in these labs, right?
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs talks about in The Triumph of the Nerds, he says, when I walked in to the Xerox labs, they showed me three things which changed me, but I only remember one.
Yeah. He got so blinded. He's so amazed by that one thing that he forgot those other two.
He forgot the other two.
Which was, paramount to what we know as the
Apple today.
Computers today, yeah.
Yeah.
So
and that was graphical user interface.
No. Graphical user interface is what he actually got blinded on.
Yeah.
So the first one is the network.
Yeah.
Networking. So
network
email,
PCs.
like local area network. So you know how we know as the internet today. He didn't even see that. It was there. Because sending emails. And then he didn't see the laser printer. He didn't see what, because back then when you printed something out, it was dot matrix.
Yes.
It didn't come out exactly.
WYSIWYG.
Yeah, WYSIWYG. What
printing.
you see is what you get. Yeah, basically.
Right.
But what he got so blinded on was the GUI, which is the graphical user interface.
And the mouse.
And the mouse. So he knew from then that this is how all computers are going to work one day.
And so when he says, when I went back to
Apple,
to Apple, and looked at he basically changed the whole direction of the company. He said, we need to be building graphical user interface. GUI. The funny thing about this, which is crazy, and Steve Jobs says it in it as well, he goes, well, Xerox had the whole market. All of those became $100 million markets, billion-dollar markets, the network, the GUI, which is the
software,
and laser printing and all
the
of
printing.
that. But the thing about Xerox Labs is, even though they had it all patented, the visionaries, when they tried to tell Xerox board of directors to go that direction,
they threw it out the window.
Because
they didn't know about it. They didn't know that it could make money.
Yeah. Not only didn't know it could make money, I think the thinking wasn't even there. When they're talking
about
the mindset,
it wasn't there.
Which totally tells me that sometimes there's a disconnect between
their workers and their the powers that be in a company.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to follow, even though these people are powerful and they've got it. If you know something and you believe it, like Jobs did, he didn't have a base to go off. He didn't have to worry about all the shit that Xerox had to worry about.
Yeah,
he's like, I've got my little company. I'm just going to go there and innovate.
Yeah, that's it. It's not so little back then anymore, but. Definitely not as big as Xerox. I mean, Xerox was
like an IBM.
It's a tried and true, company. I mean, Apple back then was just still fairly new. And before the GUI interface, what did they have? Some of you may not remember, but we all had an operating system where you had to actually type in the commands in order to get something out. So, for example, in order to get to a folder, you needed to type, CD space folder name enter. And then that's how you get to a folder. And now, what do? You just double click on it and there's your folder.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's just made it accessible. But I guess what we're trying to say
What's the takeaway from this?
I mean, my takeaway is definitely listen to this man and watch Triumph of the Nerds.
Watch that film.
There are many stories, so many winners, so many losers.
Yeah.
It'll give you an insight into success. And it's more relevant than ever in tech today when we're innovating, and anybody can be an innovator today.
Which is more than 30 years ago, and it's still relevant today. That's saying a lot.
Anybody in a startup can look at that journey and go, it parallels that. Two guys in a basement can start something and rival the world, and that's what we love about tech.
That's it. Triumph of the Nerds. Watch it.
CouchTalk, episode 3.